Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Module 1 discussion on the founding documents. So there are a lot of different documents throughout history that influence the founding of the United States of America. But we're going to zoom in on one specifically, and that is the Declaration of Independence. And the reason that I wanted to kind of zoom in on this one, because it is such a key document to our country's history, but it's also one that a lot of us don't actually know a lot about. And so I think it's important for us to sort of spend some time sort of deconstructing it. And so the first thing that I want you to do this week is actually click on the link here below so you can go see the declaration, because you're going to actually need to use it for your discussion questions. It's not a very long document. It's like maybe 2 pages. The English is a little bit weird. It's not technically Old English, but it is kind of weird English, but you'll be able to make sense of it. So go over there and review that and read that. You might need to go back to it after I give you your discussion questions. But basically, the Declaration, the framers of our Constitution, the founding fathers, before they declared independence, they knew that they needed some kind of document that could unite all of the colonies behind a revolution against Great Britain. Because remember, at the time, Great Britain was the most powerful military empire in the world. And so declaring a revolution against them was kind of a big deal. And so they needed something, a document that anybody in the colonies could pick up and read this document and go, oh, that's why we need to have a revolution. That's why we need independence. But also, that's why I should support that as well. Because most historians will kind of say that roughly about a third of the people in the colonies were already in support of independence. Another third actually were still kind of loyalists to the Great Britain, to the empire, because it's the most powerful empire in the world, so it has a lot of perks to be part of that empire. And then there was about a third of the country that either couldn't have an opinion or didn't have an opinion at the time. So Native Americans, slaves, women, things like that. But there was still a lot that needed to be sort of brought together in this document. And so they tasked Thomas Jefferson to write this document. He had a little editorial help, but it was basically Thomas Jefferson that wrote this document. It's a good trivia question, by the way. And it did sort of serve two purposes. It was sort of a philosophical document on the one hand, and the first half of it is very philosophical. And the second half of it, though, is very political, very practical. And so on the one hand, the philosophical part of it, you have to remember that the founding fathers didn't exist in a bubble, right? They were well educated for the time. They did a lot of reading. And this was at the tail end of the Age of Enlightenment, where you had sort of the John Locke's and Thomas Hobbes and the big political philosophers writing their big books and things. And the founding fathers read all of those things. And so a lot of these big ideas about politics and government and things like that showed up in our founding documents, including the Declaration of Independence. And so you'll be able to see some really key and very powerful and important messages in the first half of the Declaration of Independence. But the second half of it was sort of a political document, right? Because not everybody in the colonies was well educated, well read. And so you needed something that was sort of practical, like, why are we declaring independence? And so the second half of the Declaration, you'll see, is almost like a bullet point list, like a laundry list of all of the bad things that the King of England, the British Empire, did to the colonies. All of basically these are all the horrible things that they did to us. This is why we have to rebel. So a very political, practical side of things. And so those are the two parts that I want you to sort of wrestle with this week. And so I have basically 2 questions for you for your discussion question for this week. So number 1, the first part of the document is philosophical, sort of the aspirational section. So what sentence do you think is the most important and why in the first half? Then in the second half, the later half is sort of, again, like the laundry list of grievances against the King of England. Which of those offenses do you think is the worst and why? And again, don't forget to end all of your posts with an open-ended question. Open-ended is something that cannot just be answered with a yes or a no or one word. So the how and why questions are the best. So your initial post and your 2 replies should all end with an open-ended question. So I'm looking forward to reading your post, and I will see you all next week.